Okay, so very good afternoon, everybody, and we are here to discuss the Westland. So initially, we have seen that what are the impressions of the Westland when we first time read the poem, and now we have studied the poem. So what are the key aspects of the poem that we have studied? Very quickly, we will overview that, and then we will ask you that now what do you think of this poem, and we want to compare that what were the initial impressions of this poem, and now after a brief understanding of the poem, how do we look at this poem. So in this poem we have seen that the poem is made up of various images. Yes, the poem is in 5 parts, and the burial of the dead, a game of chess, the fire sermon, death by water, what the thunder said. We try to represent it in form of various images also, to see that how we can very prominently think of image, that is because imagism was also one of the trends of modern literature or in the modernist time. So we wanted to connect how can we visualize various images which are given in this poem. So this is how we were looking at it. It is a kind of a collage of images. It is a kind of a collage of images. Some critics have said about images that it is something like let us say, for example, it seems to be somewhere also like heap of broken images. Seems to be like heap of broken images, the word which is used by Eliot also in the poem. So many have seen this also, heap of broken images. Or if you want to have another visual for this broken, one obviously is collage. Yes. Collage is also, because collage is an art form, a different art form which you tried in writing a Dada poem also. Yes. You were experimenting with the Dada poem which you put it on the notice board also. So there also you were trying to do collage work. Yes. So collage is a different art form that also helps us as a metaphor to understand this poem. One more thing, heap of broken images. So this all images are not complete. They seem to be broken, which gives us one more idea, and that is that this poem seems to be a kind of an image of shattered mirror. Yes, shattered mirror. Now we know that what is shattered mirror. So if you see yourself in a shattered mirror, then you will see yourself in a multiple ways. So many images are visible in there, and all images are broken images. They will not make one image, but it will give you multiple images of one thing. For example, your face only. It's only your face, but it is so shattered. It will show repeated images somewhere. So your eyes may be like you have 1,000 eyes. It is repeated. Now that becomes very interesting to see that this poem also has repeated images. Some things are repeated again and again, which also we have discussed. We are talking that the same image may come, or the myth may be different, the story may be different, but the ultimate idea may be the similar one. It may be used for the similar one. So very broadly, either there is an image of lack of spirituality or sexual perversion. So in these two groups, most of the images are repeatedly coming. So that is like shattered image, shattered mirror. When we look at there, we find that the image which is there is broken. So overall image of European civilization, if you want to take it like that way, then the shattered image of European civilization is what comes before our eyes. And so in different glasses, different piece of mirrors, there is a repeated image of that brokenness or that representation of a society or a culture is coming. We know that mirror is a very popular metaphor for literature also. Time and again, if you ask any little boy or a girl, what is your definition of literature? It will say that it is a mirror of society. That is very easily people would say that. So, but here this mirror is a shattered mirror. When people say, what are the reasons for that? What are the reasons for this shattered thing? So, one immediate answer people were giving was World War I, and it was the image of what happens because of bombing. So, what happens to our societies, our cities, our buildings, everything when dropping of bombs happen. So, the dropping of bombs has shattered the entire materialistic buildings or the structures of cities, big cities in Europe there. So, maybe because of World War I and the visuals of bombing of the cities, everything converted into debris or broken structures. Maybe that is mirrored here. So this mirror also is shattered mirror, broken mirror. And so all images that we get are also somewhere broken images, incomplete picture of something that keeps on repeatedly coming there. So this, remember this, when tomorrow we come back to this idea about shattered idea, we will see another interpretation also in this. Today we are seeing one interpretation, that is World War. The poem is written after First World War. So most of the critics have seen that it is this that might have influenced the imagination of T.S. Eliot. And so the images, the way they are coming is like shattered because of bombing, So that visual also he is capturing here. So let us very quickly see what are these images in various poems which are seen as the shattered images in various capacities. Okay, so in the first part, the burial of the dead, we are able to see landscape is repeatedly coming, yes, landscape or seascape or mountainscape. So that way this scape of geography keeps on coming again and again in this poem. So landscape, then Murray in the mountains, that scene we have seen there. Landscape scene again of deserted place in the rock, repeated one. Then we get reference to opera, Wagner's opera, which reminds us of Isolde and Hyacinth and the Apollo story. Madame Sosostris and the tarot cards, variety of images are coming because each and every tarot card also stands for something significant. Then Unreal City, which is again a repeated image in various parts that we see there. And last scene is about buried corpse, Stetson, suddenly a non-face in the crowd of dead people. Tiresias, possibly because in this part we still don't know whether he is really Tiresias or who, but now we can say that maybe Tiresias is calling to Stetson, ships at Meili, and the dog image that we have seen in the last part. In the second part, a game of chess, we had a very beautiful first image of xylograph in lady's chamber, so wooden carvings. So it is a place where the women would beautify herself, and it is a game of chess, so women beware women, Middleton's play comes in the mind, and the very idea about using those synthetic perfumes and the plastic makeup is obviously to trap somebody. So that way even those makeups and those perfumes which are synthetic and plastic, which speaks about something where these women are not going to use the very space for something good, but again signifies spiritual degradation on one hand and sexual perversion on the other hand. Then it gets connected with the myth of nightingale, as the carving comes there of Cupidon, of dolphin, of nightingale. So there are so many such beautiful carvings there. Cupid is there, dolphin is there, which are both symbolic of playfulness, which goes almost in a direction of sexual playfulness, or that imagery is very much stronger in those aspects there. And the nightingale, myth of Philomela, that also we have seen there. Barbarous king Tereus and this. And then dialogue without any identity, seems to be two people, man and women, we don't know. But some kind of a thing. You know nothing. Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? Are you alive or not? Is there nothing in your head? Think. Why don't you think? So this is very curious question. You can ask people that speak something. Why don't you speak? But you can't say think. Why don't you think? And thinking is very terrible also. Thinking is something that is, for Westlanders, it is almost not possible to think. So that is perhaps what Eliot wants to say. And then the last scene is in the coffee shop. Lil and the husband, Albert, is in military, and this there. So that is second part, a game of chess, and all these images we have seen. In the third part, the fire sermon, again series of, it's one of the longest part, and it reminds us of Buddha's sermon, the fire sermon, Aditya Parva that we have seen, the Aditya Paryay, from where these sermons are taken. And so we have read some part of that Aditya Paryay also, that how everything is aflame. Nose is aflame, tongue is aflame, eyes, ears, skin, body, intellect also, everything is aflame. And one needs to detach itself from all those things. One has to detach for that, and only detachment can help from the passions, the lustful passions of either eyes, ears, tongue, or the intellect. From that one has to be free. So that is the part here. And then we have river Thames, and a very dirty river, like a canal, like a gutter. The river is flowing there, and obviously the things that happen around the river is also not something that the culture might be proud of, or even a civilization might be proud of the thing there. So just now, as we were talking about the episode of one boy murdering a girl in Surat, now no civilization or culture will be proud of that. They will not be very proudly saying that look at our Kabir Singhs, look at our Pushpas, and see how they are now doing wonderful things. Nobody will be proud of. So that is that things which we see here also. Bank of Canal, fishing, so all the myth of Fisher King, Parsival, Grail, Holy Grail, and the spear, so that all also comes here. Unreal City again is repeated here. Brown Fog, Mr. Eugenides, who is a merchant, so the merchant business, merchandise, and that idea also comes here. Here we come to know that everything is stream of consciousness of Tiresias. We are in the memory of Tiresias, and it is Tiresias who is telling us whatever has gone in the past and whatever is happening and what may happen in future because of all these things. So everything is perhaps Tiresias who is observing. And he tells also that I have suffered all these things in past, as a man also and as a woman also. Everything, and his reference directly is to the sexual misbehaviors in those Greek days also. So right from those old days, which sometimes we think that old days are the golden days, old is gold, but Eliot do not believe in that idea that old is gold. So whatever is happening is not first time. It has happened earlier also. So that's how mythical technique is used here to remind us that whatever is happening has happened. But maybe because we suffer from amnesia. And so we have to keep on living that again and again. We have to keep on repeating it again and again. Typist and clerk episode, city scene comes here, like landscape, city scene, then river, which is full of sweat, tar and oil. Three Thames daughter, and how these three daughters are being abused by some rich people or their lovers. That story comes there. Burning Carthage, the last thing, and oh Lord, pluckest me out. Oh Lord, pluck me out. So Purgatoria, from Dante's Purgatoria, these lines are also taken. To Carthage, then I came, burning, burning, burning. And so this burning is a passion. It is a lust under which everybody is suffering. And that reference is connecting with the title, the fire sermon. Death by water is the shortest part in this poem, and there is only one image as such here about a Phlebas, who is a Phoenician sailor and a very smart sailor, very skillful sailor, very tall and handsome also. But still, where is he lost? His bones are lying somewhere at the bottom of the ocean. So Eliot reminds that don't be proud of your skills and other things. You never know that even a kind of this little bit of disturbance in the ocean can also kill you, and even your bones will not be found there. So that is, be humble, practice humility. That is perhaps what Eliot wants to say by this to all human beings. What the thunder said, final part, last and the final part. And here again, like third part, he comes back to India or Indian spirituality. He comes back to find an answer. Like in part 3 also, he was talking about fire sermon. So here Upanishadic references are there, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is directly referred here, where Prajapati's myth we have studied, and we have seen that how Prajapati is having a talk with his 3 children, God, human, and demons, the godly people, the humans, and the demons. And then how, when they are asking that what is the ultimate message for us, what is the ultimate message, then he says the, and then you interpret the, and they interpret the as for one people as be a data, be a giver, for one as damayata and dayadvam. So depending upon what they lack, that message is taken by all of them. So maybe Eliot wants to say that everybody has something in abundance, something in scarcity. Whatever one is lacking is something that one has to fill in. So demons were very cruel, they need to have compassion. So that is what they have to practice. Human beings are very greedy, they have to be giver, so they have to practice that. And godly people are very sensuous people, so they have to like practice daman there. So self-restraint is what they have to practice. So self-restraint, self-control, be a giver, be a data, and then have a compassion for that are the ultimate message that he wants to say. But along with that, he gives various images also. There is a reminder to Jesus Christ in frosty gardens, stony places, that comes there. There is again the landscape where people are, as if people are going towards the mountain over a sandy road, they are going, but there is no silence, there is no solitude, there is no water, there is not even a sound of water. So no silence, no solitude, no sign of water. Water is a symbol of purification, spiritual purification also. But apart from that, what people require on the path of spirituality is solitude and silence, which also is not there when these people are going. They see somebody who is walking beside them, a very surreal image comes there, murmurs of the maternal lamentations also come there. And then the poem ends with the last thing that I have to take care of my land. And so let me see what is problem in my land, that is my body, my life. That is the symbol of what is the problem. And he says that perhaps you may think that again Hieronimo has gone mad. Again this poet has gone mad, so he is talking this all goody things. So is that, well, it depends upon you, whatever you want to take. And in the last lines, there are series of lines from Italian language, from Latin language, from Sanskrit language. And the last 2 lines, data, dayadvam, damayata, shanti, shanti, shanti. With the Sanskrit words, the poem comes to an end also there. So this is overall poem with variety of images that we have seen here. And while discussing that, we have seen that this poem has multiple voices, which we can see as shattered image or collage or heap of broken images. Rebecca Horden has said that there is a multiple voices in this poem there, but all these things are quite aesthetically combined with each other. So like all these multiple voices seems to speak something significantly, something very important that might be coming here. So that is what comes here, aesthetically merging erudition and emotion through cacophony of diverse and often dissonant voices. Poem serves as a microcosm of the modern state of mind and the state of the world itself. So when we imagine ourselves, when we are silently with ourselves, our mind doesn't speak only one voice. It keeps on speaking variety of voices. So that is how it is, the state of modern state of mind, and maybe about the world itself also. Then this is the central theme that we have seen during the discussion. It is about spiritual drought and sexual perversion. So whether it is spiritual drought leading towards sexual perversion or sexual perversion leading towards spiritual drought. But there in Eliot's vision, there seems to be some connection between both of them. So if you take care of the spirituality, then maybe the kind of lustful behavior that is found in the society can be stopped also. But when everybody will have to practice. In those years, like 100 years before, like 1922, exactly 100 years before, he was looking towards India for hope. He thought that the Indian ideas, Indian spirituality, Buddhism, Upanishad will help the world to overcome. But today, when we open our newspapers and the kind of news that we read about today's India, we find that perhaps we also have not learned from our own philosophies, our own spirituality, our own Ved, Upanishad, or at least not put it into practice in a proper context. Maybe that is what down the line 100 years we learn. That this is where we are now. So where will we go to get the message? Which direction are we going to look to overcome the things there? So that is there. Baudelaire is the French poet who gave this observation also, good and evil there. Life in death and death in life. Clint Brooks has read this and we have discussed this, that death is a theme and repeatedly the image of death keeps on coming. And what he wants to say is this life in death and death in life. So there may be people who are living, but the living people are almost dead. They are of no use. They are spiritually dead people. There may be people who have died, but they are living in our memory. So died for a good cause, sacrificed their life for a good cause, which is not recorded in any of the solicitor's pamphlet or book or any of the will, or no memory is written, no poem is written on their life, but those people who sacrifice. And maybe it is because of those silent, unknown sacrifices that we are existing today. That is what Eliot wants to say. Our existence is directly connected with all those people who sacrificed their lives for the betterment of humanity. And they all have died in an unknown way also. So life in death and death in life was the thematic reading there. It is also a satire on the Western society, which is exhausted, its spiritual and cultural legacy. The war, as we were seeing there, as an example, and 2000 years of Western civilization seems to have collapsed in First World War when they became thirsty for each other's blood and started killing. So many of the sensitive souls, like Eliot, might be disturbed to see those scenes there. So I.A. Richards and Clint Brooks would like to read this poem as a religious poem or a Christian poem, but in our discussion we have seen that it is not merely a religious or Christian poem, or not obviously only Christian poem. If you even want to see it as a religious poem, then also it has a reference to Eastern religions also, like Sanatan Dharma is there, Buddhism is there, so it is like a world religion. You can't say it is only about Christian as a religion. It is about many other religions also. But we want to say it is not only about religion, it is more about spirituality. So it is not only a religious poem, because religious things or the solutions of the religion many times drag us into rites and rituals. Whereas this poem is not taking us into rites and rituals. The poem is not telling that you should go on a pilgrimage once in a while, you should walk on your path, or you should fast on your way, or none of those kriya kand is suggested by the poem. The poem rather says that peep inside and see. Are you a giver? Do you like something? If you are greedy, are you able to give? If you are very cruel, can you practice compassion? If you are having this wild sensations, lustfulness, then can you have self-restraint? Can you have self-control of your emotions and other thing or not? So such simple things which are necessary for spiritual life, which all the religions would be talking about this spiritual aspect, where one takes care of other human beings, but as charity begins at home, it begins with the self. That is what he perhaps wants to say. So it is not as such only a Christian poem or only a religious poem, but it is more of in short, it is for Sanatan Dharma, that is way of life, which is spiritual, which cares for fellow humans, sacrifices for fellow beings, be a giver, be an empathizer, and dispassionate or disenchanted life is what is necessary for the spiritual things there. F.O. Matheson, in this essay, The Achievements of T.S. Eliot, had said that this poem talks about universality in a way that whatever is in the past is in the present also, or whatever is happening in the present has happened in past also. So that way it connects past and present together. And that also is something interesting which we connect with Eliot's essay, Tradition and Individual Talent, which says that everybody is traditional because we are a part of the life that is lived by everybody. But at the same time, tradition is not something that is static, dead monument, but it is also something alive. And when an individual talent comes to life, then the tradition will readjust itself behind the individual talent. So there is the very, very interesting relation between tradition and individual talent. That is the relation between past and present. So past is not dead past. Past is living with us. And in present moment when something happens, the entire chain towards the past reshuffles, readjusts itself. And our way of looking at the past changes because of the present event or present happenings also. So with the connection of tradition and individual talent also, we can see how he looks at past and present. The another idea given in that very essay is about historical sense, where again he gives lots of importance to pastness of the past and its importance in present time also. So for him, past is not dead, past is very much alive with us. Whatever is happening has always happened somewhere in past, but just we require a kind of an insight to look. And we may say that, well, this happens because we don't, as a collectively as a human being, we don't remember things properly. We lack historical sense. So we don't know what are the solutions also. We terribly lack solutions also for various kinds of things there. Okay, so that is the achievements of T.S. Eliot. Helen Gardner says that the poem may begin with the dilemma of the modern mind. It discovers that the modern dilemma is the historic dilemma. And to limit the poem's meaning to being primarily the expression of modern lack of faith is to mistake its form and scope. So this poem is not only about modern time or only post-World War time. It is something that is connected with historical dilemma. Time and again, such kind of things humanity has faced. Crisis in spirituality, crisis in civilization. Time and again they have faced, and they have found a way also out of that. So Helen Gardner would say that it is not only the poem which is a modern poem or something that happens in this time of modernity where the society is coming out of a world war, but this is a historical dilemma. F.L. Lucas's observation we have just gone, so I'm not repeating this. You might have seen this in the slides. Tiresias is the one who gives unity to the entire poem, as we have seen that it seems that we are in the memory of this, and he is the thread of the rosary. One of the when we are looking at all these images, earlier we have seen that one of the images also is about rosary. Because this poem has that religious idea also. So we were looking at about the rosary, which many religions use. Religious people do use some material thing when they are doing prayers, to count their prayers, or the like Rudraksh Mala, or the Muslims also have, Jews also have, Christians also keep several things. So that way rosary, and all these images are beads. And if there is anything that binds all these beads together, these images together, it is Tiresias. So Tiresias is the thread which knots various beads together, gives unifying effect to seemingly disjointed mumbo jumbo of all the images. So all seems to be quite thing, but they come together into one garland through Tiresias. Mythical technique is used there. We have seen various myths being used, so we are not repeating this point here. And the structure of the poem also we have seen, it is kind of a spiral structure. Yeah? So it keeps on growing in one or the another way. Like we have seen this earlier, that there are like two parts in which all the images are divided, spirituality and sexuality. If this way, if these two parts are divided, then various images in all the parts will be repeated. In all 5 parts we may find one image repeatedly coming here or here in different way. So we were seeing that, well, they come, but then it comes with different intensity. They are at a different height when they repeatedly come. So that way, spiral way, the poem grows from here to here, from there to here, and then from here they come here, and then again it moves on in different ways. So that way there is a spiral growth of the poem. There is repeated, this image is repeated together in different way, but the intensity is of a different kind. When we come back again to the same thing, we are at a much higher plane to see those things there. So that is the structure of the poem. It is like music of ideas. I.A. Richards told that it seems like it is a kind of a music of ideas there. These are the books which inspired Eliot to get some of the ideas about myth and the historical sense also. Jesse Weston's From Ritual to Romance, and James George Fraser's The Golden Bow, which we partly referred in our discussion also. So these are the things there as a part of this poem. And now we want you to tell us, how do you view this poem? What is impression of this poem on you now after seeing? What are the highlights or important things which you might have identified from this poem? Yes, so first of all, how do you now look at this poem? What is your a kind of an answer to this? Yes?
Yes, sir. In the very first reading, I found the poem is lacking the kind of meaning with the references for me and all these things. But after reading or analyzing it and studying the poem in detail, then I found that, okay, all the things that seem, they are human, but they are ultimately at some deeper level, they are all from it.
Okay, so initially you found the poem is disjointed, but now you think that, well, there is a kind of a connection.
It generates a perfect meaning, a single meaning for both.
Okay, but it is leading to looking at one direction, that now you can see that, well, everything is beautifully crafted. It's a well crafted poem. It doesn't seem to be mumbo jumbo of variety of, like you bring a cheat out of a jar for a Dada poem, and whatever comes, you paste it. So this poem initially seems like a Dada poem where things are just brought out and they are put it there, but now it seems to have some significance there. Okay, what is that significance? We'll come to that. We'll ask you, so keep in your mind that also. Yes, who else would like to say anything? How do you look at it? Yes?
On the first impression of the poem, we read that the poem is having a complete negative impact. There is sense of ending, that something is dying. But after the overall overview of the poem and reading of the poem, we see that it is bringing some hope in the rotten civilization, that they should look towards the Western civilization, towards India's spirituality.
Okay, so one point that it seems to be a hopeless poem. Instead of that, the poem has a hope. It is optimistically ending. So it seems to have a kind of a tragic optimism. It seems to have a kind of a tragic optimism rather than having toxic positivity. These two words are very interesting words, toxic positivity and tragic optimism. So this poem may not have toxic positivity, but it seems to have a kind of tragic optimism to end this poem with a hope, and it looks towards Eastern philosophy, Indian Upanishad for that. Yes, who else? You can just compare with what you thought earlier and now what you think. So those who have given their responses earlier, now again you can revisit your responses to tell us what do you think of it. Yes?
First, I read this poem, and this time I very confused in what you say. Yes, Eliot. It's a very complex to understand. But I also read this poem and all those discussions. After I find that the myths and illusions and historical context, and after I know to all these connections. And between and last time you find out this poem is give to hidden message, and it is a very simple to understand of all those myths and historical context. That time it is simple.
So earlier what happened when you have seen earlier? What was your impression?
Very complex.
Very complex, or you are not able to get any sense of the thing. But now it seems very clear. It seems that, well, it has a very clear images. It doesn't seem to be even a broken or shattered image also. Even if it is broken or shattered or heap of broken images, but still it seems to give us some sense also. Now, this may become something significant for you also, because you have practiced this Dada poem. So you know that when you cut down the pieces and put somewhere and pick up, it seems to like broken heap. It is a heap, and whatever image comes you are bringing. But in a very artistic way, all those randomness has been controlled by Eliot. Even if it is quite random, it seems to be very random, but there is an art in randomness. There is. So modern art or modern literature seems to be very random, meaningless, but it is not so meaningless. It has a deep meaning. It is a deep connection also. So even when we visualize modern painting or this Dada kind of a poem, we think that, well, it is nothing, but it is not so. There is some kind of design. There is some kind of a hidden connection behind all those things also, which we can get to know from this. Okay, who else would say yes? What is your response? Yes, be quick. Yeah. Yeah.
There is one monologue coming in the poem about speaking and thinking. At the first, we feel that it is the loneliness, or the people are trying. The conversation is giving idea to the readers that they should think or they should speak. But after understanding of the poem, we realize that it is the nothingness in that period, nothingness of the people that is bringing that monologue in the poem.
Okay, that is a good point. How do you interpret this very idea of this monologue? How do you look at this monologue is still very interesting to see. So it seems to be like between two characters, and who are those characters we don't know. It seems to be. But it may be like a satire on people also, or the reader also. There is one direct reference to reader at the end of part 1, where poet is directly addressing to reader also. And at the end also he again says that you may think that I have gone mad. So he is connecting. So if those dialogues are read in a way like it is also told to the readers, why don't you think? Why don't you talk? Why don't you speak? Then it is not wrong interpretation. That interpretation also is possible. That is what the esoteric nature of literature wanted to do. That why people are not thinking. Why? That's why they are taking themselves or escaping from the herd. They want people to think on their own about those things. So even if you read that it is told to the reader, it's not a wrong interpretation. It is not a wrong. But there are the Westlanders, if we take ourselves aloof, then there are those Westlanders who are talking and they are not able to make any sense of their communications there. Okay, then any other doubt also in the mind, then also you can clarify, you can ask if there is anything in your mind that you would like to ask. Or any other response? Yes.
When I first this poem first influenced me as like it was leading readers towards hopelessness towards hope. But when now I come to know. Now I understand the poem. I found that it is not just about hopelessness and it was leading towards hope, but it is also there are some more themes which are reflecting like spirituality or some universal truths and other things like sexual perversion and other so many things are there. And the last part of the poem, like the three data that we found, it is something seems like the three data is conclusion of the entire poem. Because the meaning of this three die is like controlling ourselves, and another thing is give something, and the compassion. So in the entire poem also, these sounds are reflected somewhere.
Okay, fine. So the poem is not like simply about hope and hopelessness only. Yeah? It is, you can't just summarize the poem as something that is speaking about hope and hopelessness or hope in the hopeless situation. It is not only that, but it articulates entire thing in a more interesting way, in a much different way. There are lots of things about how do we look at hopelessness, how do we define hopelessness. So if people say if there is a hopelessness in the poem, what do you mean by hopelessness? And then you have to say that, well, when the entire culture is sexually perverse or in any way it is perverse. Perversity, what is the meaning of perversity? Can you tell me? You can refer to dictionary and tell me what is the meaning of perverse. Yes? Vikrupta. Yeah, yeah, yes.
You can say digest from the general code.
Yes, yeah.
In Oxford University, it is like distortion of or corruption of the original cause, meaning or state of something.
Distortion into the original state of something, vikruta, some kind of that. Okay, then any other thing anybody else found? Any other words to define? Yes. What is the first word?
Deliberate desire.
Deliberate desire
To behave in an unreasonable or unacceptable way.
To behave in an unacceptable or unreasonable way. Yes, desire word goes very near to what we want to see there. Yes.
Yes, sir. Another more than desire, like it is there. Like, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, the another meaning is that an evident sexual practice or interest, especially when habitual.
Yes. Read again the entire thing.
An evident. An evident sexual practice or interest, especially when habitual.
Okay. Now, yes. So now, perversity here we see in terms of sexual misbehavior, but at the same time, it is all about even money and materiality also. One can be perverse in terms of greediness also, greediness for wealth, greediness for money, and even that also can lead to. So, in a variety of ways, we can use this word, or we can understand this perversity of materialistic society. So in 20th century, the Western world has become perverse even in that way. That's why as a colonial masters, they were amassing wealth in their own countries and making the entire world poor. They were making the entire world poor and they were getting that wealth in their own land. Now, as we have seen earlier as a part of this spiritual understanding of the things, we see that there is a very microscopic way that things may operate or behave microscopically. And that is why if the wealth that we have collected, if it has a blood on it, it is not going to yield good result to the users of that wealth. They are not going to be happy with that wealth. And that is what perhaps has happened to West also. They became super rich, very wealthy. And by what way? By making the other world poor. And then what happened? What happened of that money? You killed each other. First World War and then very quickly Second World War. So many critics have observed that also, that the seeds of a monster like Hitler is sown by these people only, by themselves only. You can't expect a better human, you can't expect a Gandhi if you are doing such a kind of thing. It is the Hitler only who will grow. You will always see the Hitler growing with the kind of an attitude. Well, that is who is Amy Césaire. Amy Césaire is an African scholar, and in the book Colonialism, that writer is connected with Hitler and this kind of. Well, we cannot find enough scientific proof to connect this microscopic spiritual reading of everything, that bad thing happens because you have done bad and other kinds of a thing. But that is fine. But perversity of wealth also, perversity of behavioral things also, everything amassed together in that way. So it is the greed that people run for monetary things. Okay, then what?
I agreed that irrational thoughts are also kind of perversion.
Yeah, irrational thoughts also can be considered as, yeah, that is this intellect also is aflame. Buddhist sermon would say that even your intellect is, so this thoughts about rationality or irrationality, though these are the matters of definition also, how do we define the things, but again that also can be considered in the same way. Okay, what else? Anybody else would like to give any? Yes.
While reading the poem or listening, the first thing I thought was it's based on loss. The poem by reading only one line, hardly aware of a departed lover. But now, by analyzing or seeing the full poem, different things are shown in the poem. In first part, we can see the main arts on unreal city, and in second part, we can see the wooden carving and makeup of a woman prepping someone attractive. In third part, we can see the lustful passion. So, and in fourth, we can see the be humble and practice humanity. And in fifth, human becomes like God. These all things are mixed. But first, I thought it's only on loss, nothing else.
Okay, so we got you got a deeper understanding of lot many things which is interwoven in this poem. Okay, yes.
The title of one of the part is the game of chess. Reading over the title, we feel that as it is a game of chess, the further reading in the poem will be something about intellectuality, but in the poem gives the scene of perversion of sexual values. There is a scene of a woman, a wife is cheating husband who is in army, then a king who is having doing rape over his wife's sister, then the monologue of nothingness. The chess issue, chess is generally symbolized as intellectuality, but the complete perversion of sexual values is seen in this part.
Yes, yeah. So our way of looking at the game of chess that undergoes a change. How do we look at chess? Because earlier when we were looking at I. Richards, ये खेल क्या है? A poem by Javed Akhtar, ये खेल क्या? That also we are seeing how do we visualize the game of chess. So obviously chess is a game of intrigue to trap somebody. So that is a very stronger imagery with chess rather than intellectuality. rather than somebody who is intellectual or smart would play a game of chess. But a literary symbol in the chess is always to cheat somebody, which obviously is very deeply connected with Shatranj ka khel, even in Mahabharata also. So Shakuni, the way he was controlling the those pasa of that was to cheat somebody. It is the very deep imagery is cheating is connected with the very idea of the game of chess also. So that is where that kind of intellect is developed in game of chess, where how you can trap others, how you can cheat with others there. So that is the symbolic reading, the chess in literature, how it comes. So we can see that. Okay, who else? Yeah.
Before studying this poem, my first impression is about death. That is perhaps there is something death of people, many of people. Perhaps Eliot mentioned that there is death of many people or like that. But after studying this poem, my further impression is that here Eliot put the word death in context of spirituality, that death of spirituality.
Okay, so death is not a physical death, but death of spirituality is more significantly being found in the poem. Okay, okay, fine, good point. That also. Then who else? Anything in your mind? Anybody else would like to say about this poem now? So your initial impressions and now what you think. Yes.
Yes, sir. One thing that I found before I was reading this poem, that I found that why Eliot is using so much myths in his poem. But now after reading the blog you said in the classroom, that I found okay, it is about concrete idea to the myth.
It is?
It is about concretize the abstract idea.
To concretize the abstract idea, yes? Yeah. Through the myths, yeah.
That is why Eliot has used that myth.
Yeah, that is a good point. Good. So the abstractions are concretized with the help of myth. Yeah, so mythical technique is used to concretize some abstract ideas. So now today morning when we are talking about that, well, young people would murder people in this way, there is a different kind of a passion, and then when you give an example of that, then that idea gets very much settled in our consciousness. We can understand that in a better way. So the abstract idea gets concretized in form of a myth. So mythical technique is something good that poets keep on using time and again in different way, because they know that myths are there in the collective consciousness of the people. The stories may be in one way or the another way, whatever way it is, but the story is there. So as we are moving towards the another festival of Holika Dahan, everybody will have some part of a story in the mind. That why people do, then there is a story of Prahlad, of Holika. That now when a poet is using a part of that, they may use it in whatever way. But then they will say something. Some feminist people will question that how long are you going to burn women? Are you not going to pardon women ever for that? Or different way. So, but when the myth is there, it can be interpreted, reinterpreted, it can be converted into this concrete image or that concrete image. But it settles down well because it is there. So mythical techniques help poets in this way communicating with larger audiences there. Okay, then anybody else getting any point from this? Okay, so then let us conclude the things there, yeah, and so we can say that this poem, which seemed to be initially in our impressionistic criticism something that is mumbo jumbo of the things, it is completely disjointed, completely not connected with each other, and it seemed to be very varied in images also. Now we may say that, well, if we take two jars a jar of spirituality and sexual perversion, and maybe all the images will drop into either of the jar. And then we can connect that what is the relation between both of these things, spirituality and this. Eliot perhaps is in quest for this. Is there any connection? Perhaps he wants to, he is not giving a direct answer, but he might say that maybe somewhere these two things are connected. When people are having lack of spirituality, they may be attracted towards sexual perversion or material perversion or any kind of perversion, greed for even either passion and the lust of the body, or the lust for the money, or any kinds of deadly sins which Christianity celebrates in its dictums. Anybody, the person is attracted towards those things. So he may think that there may be some connection, but from where the things will begin? Things will begin with self. So I have to set my land in the order. I have to set my land in the order, and you have to give some very easy tips to people. You have to give some not very complex, that read Upanishad, read Ved, read Buddha, read Mahavir. Well, nobody is going to read. So you get some gems out of those things. You go, you read, and you bring some gems which can be easily understood and digested by the people. So he brings something interesting from Buddha, that fire sermon says, detach yourself from either the pain or the pleasure of life. Live life in fullest capacity. It is not to stay away from the life, live life, enjoy life. But see that it is not the only thing that gives you pain or pleasure. Can you detach yourself from the pain and the pleasure that the life is going to give? Then the life can be lived in a much better way. So stay away from the lustful desires for anything, any kind of success also, because in that way, if we are desiring very deeply for some kind of success, we may be attracted to do something wrong also. The other day, I think Nirav was telling that people may get success by bribing other people. You bribe people, you pay money, or you do kind of a bargain which people normally don't do. Like we have studied Dr. Faustus briefly, if you remember. So what was his bargain with the Lucifer? Soul. He was ready to bargain soul also. So well, that itself is the problem of the tragedy. That's why his tragedy happened. So then people will bargain things for the success, and they will not get any kind of success. Ultimately, whatever they will get will be some kind of positions in life, but not success. It will be some positions only, where also they will be still unhappy with one or the other thing. So that is fire sermon would say. And then later on, last point, that self-control needs to be practiced by people. Then compassion, empathy is to be this. And then we have to ask that to what extent we are giver, what we give. Are we only the takers, or are we givers also? In a digital life, in our academic environment, we try to put that in a context like, are we only downloaders, or are we uploaders also? Do we only download the things, or are we uploading also? Are we giving anything back to internet? The people who have uploaded, so we are downloading. Somebody has put something, so we are using. Are we giving back anything, or are we greedy to just, no, I will just keep on downloading only, but I will not upload anything. So academically, we try to make everybody a blogger or a YouTuber also, that you keep on sharing or giving back as a part of a practice. And sharing is caring. Today's mantra also in digital world is sharing is caring. If you care, share. If you care, then share. So be a giver. That is also the mantra that comes from this poem. So that is how we see that our understanding has enriched a lot after going through thoroughly this poem also.